Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Take This TV, the television book club podcast where each week we watch an episode or two of our favorite shows and talk about it with our friends in the fandom. That's you! Hello! I'm Carmen Askernes. I'm joined, as always, by the one and only Aaron Fusco. Hello.
Hi. I love you sounded so surprised. Our friends in the fandom. Like we were on a Nickelodeon show, a Disney Channel show, and you were talking to the children in the audience. That's you. Do you see the river?
Boots, do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, before we started recording, I was watching a trailer for Waffles and Mochi, and maybe that energy is just like coming into the podcast.
Yeah, you were like, I'm ready to talk to a bunch of preschoolers. I actually don't know what age group Waffles and Mochi is marketed towards, but it sounds like preschoolers.
All I know is I watched the trailer and I was like, add to the list.
Yeah. I haven't watched it yet. It looks cute, but that's not what we're watching this time.
Nope.
We could be. I guess we could. Let us know if you want us to watch Waffles and Mochi and talk about it. What are we watching this season? Because this is episode 2 of a new season.
It sure is. And this season, we're watching Arcane. It is the show that's based on League of Legends.
Loosely. League of Legends, does it have lore? Ostensibly, yes, because we're watching a show about it, but none of it is relevant in the gameplay.
Yeah, this is League of Legends Light. Well, I guess League of Legends is Arcane Light.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about episode 3 and 4 of Arcane.
So if you haven't watched 1 and 2, pause, watch those, listen to our podcast, watch 3 and 4, come back in. Hello.
The
pause was necessary.
Yeah,
Keep that
we
pause
waited
in.
for you. Yeah. Welcome back. Can you hit us with a recap of episode 3 and 4?
Do you want to hear what the Netflix writers thought that these episodes were about?
I feel like episode description
they are
writer.
Our best friends. I want them to contact us and be our best friend. I need to know who they are. I need to know what your job is like.
Yes, add us on socials and tell us about your job.
Sorry, I interrupted you. What was your point about the Netflix writers?
Oh, no, I was just going to say they're becoming a character on the show.
Yeah. I just don't want anyone to think we're coming for them. I don't know what their job is like. I'm sure it's hard. But sometimes these episode descriptions are wild.
They bring us joy, yeah.
All right, so we're talking about episodes 3 and 4. Episode 3, Netflix recap. An epic showdown between old rivals results in a fateful moment for Zahn. Jace and Victor risk it all for their research.
Okay, I mean, kinda.
Yeah, I can see where you get that.
Yeah.
And then episode 4, with Piltover prospering from their tech, I spelled that word wrong, prospering from their tech, Jace and Victor weigh their next move. A familiar face reemerges from Zahn to wreak havoc.
Technically that's true, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that happened.
I see what happened.
On this show, we do tend to, I feel like my mic is a little hot. Let me just turn it down a little bit.
Whatever floats your boat.
Okay, you let me know if it's sounding
How
loud.
hot is your mic?
Today on How Hot Is Your Mic? Yeah. So we have different segments on this show where we track characters in certain relationships or states.
We just invent these segments. I can't stress how unplanned this is. The thirst tracker for Winona Earp was unplanned. I just didn't remember how thirsty that show was. And then Bad Decision Olympics is sort of unplanned here.
Yes, the Bad Decision Olympics. So a recap from episode 1 and 2. Gold medal tier, we have Marcus. Silver medal tier, we had Jason Victor.
Yeah.
Bronze medal tier, we had Vi. And an honorary mention for Silco.
Right, because he's the villain. He's purposefully making bad.
Yes.
He's not competing so much as, he's willfully... he knows they're bad decisions because they're evil, right? We can all agree, sort of.
Yeah, Bad Decision Olympics, sponsored by Silco.
Sponsored by Silco.
Yeah.
Although I guess we sort of learn a little bit more about his motives in these 2 episodes, so I'm sure that there is somebody who has written this academic paper, who has this TED Talk on, why this villain thinks he's doing the right thing. I mean, I don't want to be sympathetic because I hate Silco so much. I personally don't like Silco. This is a surprise.
I'll tell you this. I was Silco was an interesting villain until episode 4. And then I was gross.
Yeah.
For a very specific reason that I'm sure we'll talk about.
I mean, we could just say it because it looks like he groomed powder.
Yeah,
into
and
Jinx.
I was like, they're definitely getting it in. Like,
I don't think so.
It was just too suggestive of their relationship, and I'm just like, no, gross.
I agree it is very weird, and I do not like the vibes, but I don't think that they were necessary. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they were necessarily trying to be like, this is sexual. It just feels bad.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's like groomed and like he's a parent or groomed as sexual, either way is bad.
It's bad.
News.
I mean, his relationship with, and I hate, I don't know how to talk about this because like, I know that people who play League of Legends have only known this character as Jinx, really. Like, she's Jinx. I hate calling her that because it's like, it's so mean. It's so mean based on what we learn in episode 3, yeah.
Well, I actually, so I'm at the risk of like getting a lore smackdown from League of Legends nerds out there. I feel like I remember playing it like that one time I played League of Legends a long time ago, and I remember the character of Jinx. And when I watched the show, for whatever the reason, and I mean, it could be because that was like, a decade ago, or however long it's been. But when I watched the show, I just felt like Jinx felt very manic pixie dream girl. And it was hard for me to like feel, in the episode 3 and 4, in episode 4, it was hard for me to feel an emotional connection to that character because she just felt like a caricature or she felt like a video game character that was like plopped into this show with real people in it.
Yeah. I can see why you would think that. I don't think she is in any way a dream girl or a pixie, but manic, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think but I mean the trope of like,
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like perhaps Riot said, we can make a new Harley Quinn.
That's a good point. I guess she is Harley Quinn.
Yeah. I don't find her, like, clearly she's going through it. So I don't find it entirely unrealistic in this world that is already so much like, we smashed science and magic together, and it exists and it's here.
Hex-tech.
Right. That, like, perhaps she is a little bit of a caricature, but, like, it doesn't feel, for me personally, too far removed from the world that exists.
Yeah, I get that. So let's backtrack a bit and talk about episode 3.
Sure. Because Netflix originally released these in chunks of 3, right? Because the first 3, and then there was the time jump, and then 4, 5, and 6, I believe. Were there 9 episodes?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. So they released them in these chunks of 3. So, like, it's very clear when you watch, like, the first 3 together. We have split them up sort of weird, but the first 3 together feel like one story, and then we do that time jump into episode 4.
And I don't know if this was intentional on their part or not, but it felt like a 3-act play of, like, episode 1, 2, and 3 is act 1, 2, and 3 of act 1. 4, 5, and 6, 1, 2, 3 of act 2, so on and so forth. But I just feel like episode 3 to me is probably one of the best episodes of like television. I don't want to like put it in a box of like animated television, just television in general. Yeah. Like the writing is so good, the characters are so good, the moment's so tragic at the end. There is some stuff that happens towards the end that's like a little wonky of like, we got to set up the next episode, but I feel like the show or the season could have been those 3 episodes. Like, that could have been it. Of just like, well, that's the story. And then, like, just like a short story. Like, that's how good it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've forgotten. I remember watching it the first time and I was like, man, that was wild. That messed me up. I got to keep watching. And I just like binged it because I waited until it all came out. But I love the like small details in that scene before the explosion happens of like what everybody's doing. And how, like, they do a good job of, like, every character is making a choice. And, like, Powder's making the choice. The bad decision Olympics. Powder might be a gold tier for this one. But
I maintain that the children don't compete. Even though we put Vi on there last week, like, I don't really think children making a bad decision is not the same thing as an adult person making a willfully bad decision.
That's true. But yeah, that episode was wild. So one thing at the end of the episode, like going into 4, that I didn't understand the first time watching all the episodes, and I still was a little confused on now, is like Marcus chloroforms Vi.
Boy, howdy does he. Welcome to Marcus.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, this guy just all around sucks. Because at first I was like, is he trying to save her? And it's like, oh, nope, he's drugging her. Okay, no, he's a bad guy. But
he does say, don't let him see you, he'll kill you.
Right, and like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, he's just like putting his hand over her mouth so she doesn't scream or anything. But it's like, nope, he's drugging her. Like, and then the next time we see her, it's like, presumably like maybe 10 years later.
I don't know how explicit it's said in the show. I don't think it was said in these 2 episodes, but I believe it's somewhere like 6 or 7 years.
Okay, but that's still a long time. I'm like, has she just been in jail this whole time for 7 years? Like, man.
I mean, I guess keep watching and we'll learn more, because episode 4 ends with us realizing she's in jail.
Yeah.
With her being the one who punched out the witness Caitlin wanted to talk to, broke his jaw, so it needed to be wired shut, and Caitlin comes face to face with Vi.
That's correct. And then the thirst tracker was born.
Well, the thirst tracker existed because last week I said that I love Jace and Victor and their unresolved science tension.
Yes. But let's talk a little bit about Jace and Victor in episode 3.
Do we have to talk about Jace and his stupid friend and the dumb decisions they make?
So, like, I think that, like, it's interesting because I feel like in episode 3, Vi's story is way more interesting than what Jace and Victor are doing. And I feel like in some ways, and I feel like also maybe it's because I don't necessarily like Jinx as much, like that Jace and Victor's story is more interesting than what Jinx is doing in episode 4.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Explain more.
Explain.
Do you have more
I'll
thoughts
elaborate.
on this?
So what I mean about episode 4 is that I feel like it opens us up to like the political intrigue and drama of the, so maybe it's not really even about Jace. It's just like the political intrigue and drama of like them trying to create these tools to help people, and then certain people on the council wanting to postpone it or to control it for their own personal reasons and personal gain. And so, like, which, I mean, they had Jace be like, I'll sacrifice the company because we want to protect people. And I'm like, didn't you just get done saying you and Victor are partners and you just told him to be quiet, and then step forward and was like, let's foreclose our company? Like, what the heck? So, yeah, that was kind of grimy. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Jace either, but I just felt like that whole world and that whole side of things, it showed the characters of the council in a new light from how we saw them previously. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, but I think that it's necessary. So episode 3, I get the impulse that you want to spend all the time with the interesting, like, action that is happening. But I do think, like, the Jace and Victor is such a small part of that episode. And also you get to see the beginnings of the counselor, what's her name? Counselor Medarda, Mel, as she, like, sees the potential in him and, like, becomes their ally. So, and then you see the birth of Hextech, right? So I do agree that, like, in that moment is less interesting and less exciting in that episode, but I think it's necessary. And then I think that the Jinx stuff in episode 4 is also necessary. 1, to set up that she is helping Silco now, that Silco raised her. We can talk about grooming all we want. I do think their vibes are bad, but, like, he did raise her from a child to be his weapon and be his unhinged lackey. And you see that she is the one who ends up, like, going off orders, but gets him the Hextech gemstone.
Yeah.
Which is important because it sets so much stuff off. And it sets off, like, Caitlin being driven to go try to save her job by going to the prison, right? Like, she's been fired, ostensibly, and she, like, her parents pulled some strings to get her off of her job. Jace tries to offer her a job. She says no, so she's going to, like, chase down her conspiracy theory. And so, like, yeah, I know you just don't like Jinx, but I do think it's necessary for the story.
No, you know, to be fair, I know that a lot of people do. And to be fair, I think that it is an interesting aspect of her character growth. And, like, they show us so much through the visuals that we see in episode 4 of, like, how she's changed from being with Silco. Like, when the airship is attacked by, what are they called?
Firelight?
The Firelight, which in my mind, I was like the legally distinct fireflies. Of like
right, yeah, the Firelights, yeah.
So when the Firelights attack, and she just kills them, and we see how, like, she's just so cold about it, I think that says a lot about her.
I mean, but she also kills her own people. She shoots her own people as well.
Yeah.
She is not a good person to take on a mission. Which is what Savika, the traitor, basically, because she left Vander's crew to go work for Silco, which we find out in episode 3, and then you see her with her new robot arm continue to be part of Silco's crew. Yeah, what she says to Silco, being like, you shouldn't let us take her. Like, we don't want to work with her.
In episode 3, when Savika saves Silco, it's like 1 second, but like her arm explodes.
Yep.
I was like, oh snap.
Yeah.
That's intense.
That episode just makes me so sad too. And like, that's why I have such a hard time. Like, I know her name is Jinx in the League of Legends, whatever, but I don't want to call her that because like, that's the moment that like Vi calls her a Jinx because she just watched her dad and her 2 friends, her adopted dad and her 2 friends die. And she blames Powder. But, like, she doesn't go far. But Powder never knows that. And that, to me, is, like, this tragedy of, like, it's been, 6 or 7 years, and there's no reconciliation yet, right? And so that just makes me so sad that I'm like, she went to work for the enemy, and it wasn't even, like, Vi would have come back if Marcus hadn't done any, like, Marcus hadn't drugged a child.
She probably would have died, though, if she did come back. But yeah, it was so powerful. I thought that, too, and the first time I watched it, but those were actually her brothers, the other 2 guys, because they were all Vander's kids.
I mean, yeah, but in the same way that they were just all adopted by Vander.
Oh, yeah, but I just meant, like,
right.
It hits different of, like, oh, man, these are my adopted family.
It was like her crew, yeah.
Yeah.
And as we all know from Fast and Furious franchise, that's family.
Family. Their deaths are also pretty brutal. Like I forget what the bombs are called, but the little blue bomb, like shrapnel.
Right, the Hextech crystals?
Yeah, the Hextech crystal, like a part of it breaks off, goes through the wall, and like goes through the one guy with the glasses. It like goes through his head. And I was like, wow, I missed that the first time around. That's so intense. And then the other dude gets impaled with the pole and then it gets crushed by the rocks.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang. Oh my gosh. I did really love how Vander went out. I thought that was like a great way to end his arc, and it was kind of mirroring when he first saved Vi and Powder, where like he took the super soldier serum, whatever it's called. Shimmer.
Yeah.
Because he was essentially about to die after Silco stabbed him. And even though he's enraged and he sees Silco, he turns back to save Vi.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a great way to end his story. I thought that felt like really like emotionally fulfilling of a full arc for him.
I mean, I guess, but it makes me sad. It makes me sad because I don't want it to have happened. It's like, even though this is not the first time I've seen this episode, watching it again, I still wanted things to happen differently. And I think I watched it this time being like, could things have happened differently at all? So first of all, I mean, it's just kind of the perfect storm of like everyone making bad decisions, sort of why I call it the Bad Decision Olympics. Everyone makes a bad decision, and it leads to it being much worse than it would. Marcus trusts Silco, who betrays him by murdering Benzo, whose name I wrote down.
Oh man, we blew right past that. That's right, yeah.
By murdering Benzo, by murdering the other enforcer who was trying to keep the peace. Yep. And then Marcus is like, this isn't what we talked about, but he got his gold. And a promotion, as we see in episode 4. He really failed upward.
He threw the gold bag down, but I'm sure he picked it up.
He picked it up.
Yeah, he picked it up.
That was slimy man. He picked it up. So, like, yeah, Vander probably wouldn't have, like, maybe he would have gone to prison, but I think the enforcer would have worked to get him out. Like, I think something could have happened there, but Silco double-crossed, or Marcus decided to trust Silco, who double-crossed him, starting this whole thing. You've got, like, Vi not taking Powder originally. Like, if Powder was there with her, she couldn't have made that big a mess with her Hextech crystals. I also think that, like, Vi comes at it from the wrong angle first, and she should have started with, like, I can't bear to lose you. Like, I won't be able to go save him if I'm worried about losing you. But instead she says, like, you're not ready. And then she backtracks and says that. But, like, obviously she's a child. It's gonna stick in Powder's head, like, you didn't want me to come. I have to prove myself. But, like, again, I don't think that's a Vi problem because she is a child and this shouldn't be all on the children. And then Powder, like, making the bomb and thinking she's doing it. And watching it again thinking, like, could they have gotten out? Like, would they have had time to get out?
So the one brother with the goggles had broken the wall down. And I think that's the most tragic part because I'm thinking back to the first time I watched it. I was like, oh, well, they they died because he didn't get the wall open in time. But he did have the wall open, and the other brother had just unlocked Vander. And it was in that split second after that is when the bomb went off. And I was like, that's so good because like...
But I think they had that time because the Shimmer kid, the beefed up Shimmer kid, was distracted by the monkey.
Yeah.
So they had that time. So, like, if Powder hadn't made a functional bomb this one time or hadn't used those crystals, it would have been fine. But it's just, like, all of these small things that went wrong in the exact right way to make this happen. And that drives me bananas. Very fun to watch, but I'm sad about it.
It is so heartbreaking. I was thinking about, like, rewatching it just makes me think about all the emotions I felt the first time. I was like, man, I love this show. I love the writing. I love the pacing. I love how all the characters feel like they have agency. And I think that that was the big thing for me that feels different than a lot of other shows, is that there were never any characters, especially for the first 3 episodes, that felt passive, like they didn't have agency. Or they were like, oh, well, I'm not the protagonist, so I'm not really doing anything. Like, all the characters had something that they wanted, and they were all making choices to try to get it. And because of their choices, there were consequences, big or small. And I thought that was so great. And I think that, like, the world and the story feels a lot bigger, even though it's really focused on these few characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a testament to the writing that, like, all of the characters, like, you can see why all of these characters make the decisions they do. And I have watched shows where the reason characters do things is because the plot says they should. And that is very obvious when you are watching it. But I do think that it feels very much like these are real, breathing, 3-dimensional characters who are making these decisions. And it's frustrating because a lot of them are bad, but you can see how they got there. And even Silco's motivations are like, I want better for us. I want us to be our own sovereign nation. And we haven't gone far enough. Like, you lost your nerve. And I want what's best for us all, even if there is a temporary cost. And, like, I don't agree, but you can see how he got there.
Oh, man. And yeah, but, like, especially in the first 3 episodes, I always thought that was a really interesting angle about Silco. And, like, the quote that he says in the title of episode 3 of, like, the base level of violence necessary for change. Like, that philosophy and how he and Vander have conflicting ideals. I was like, man, that's so interesting and that's so compelling because it's like, I mean, he is bad. Like, objectively, he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
But he wants to help his people. But then, you know, in episode 4 with the grooming stuff, I was like, all right, you lost me. You lost me.
Uh-oh, it's creepy now. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was, let me be clear, he was ready to stab that child, though. He would have stabbed Powder if she hadn't thrown herself at him or like.
You think so?
He had the knife. I think he was seriously considering it.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's really interesting because I felt like, to me, when he put it behind his back, he was like, I'm not going to kill this kid. But it could have been like him hiding it to let her
Yeah, but he put it behind his back and he said, where is your sister, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he was still looking for information and was planning to stab a child. And I don't think for one second that if Powder had led him to Vi, he wouldn't have stabbed them both.
That's true, yeah. So maybe it was like, if she chose Vi over him, then she would have died with Vi. But because she chose him, he was like, I see this as an opportunity. And he was creepy about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just very clever in, like, seeing the pawns that he has at his disposal. Boy, this is a bad comparison to make, but similar to, I think, the way that Counselor Medarda, that Mel, is clearly playing everyone and manipulating everyone. The guy on the council is still 7 years later working on that children's puzzle she gave him. Like,
yeah, I noticed that this time around. I didn't notice that the first time through, and I was like, that's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see it. So you can see it the first time that Jace, like, meets her in the hallway, that Jace is, like, immediately smitten. And I'm like, uh-oh. And, like, Mel knows it. She's like, yeah, absolutely. The counselor
I did not pick up on that the first time. I didn't even pick up on that this time, really.
He, like, makes a face. You go back and watch it. He, like, makes a face when she walks away. And I'm like, keep your eyes on your own paper. Get out of here.
Eyes up here, bud. Eyes up here.
Yeah, focus on your own problems right now. But then you can see her calculating it as well, like in episode 4, like every time he's on screen.
Yeah, I mean, Mel's a really interesting character because minus the grooming, I feel like she is the exact same as Silco, just in the upper city, I guess. You know, like she's just like the higher class version of Silco. And there's the scene when she's talking to Jace and they're like in the office alone together and she's trying to convince him that he should not listen to Heimerdinger because this is the festival. This is the time to reveal it. And she touches his chest and tries to just to manipulate him. And I'm like, man, that's so, it's so interesting because it reminds me of, oh gosh, man, I'm going to mess up the name of it. But I remember when I was learning about this in school, when I was learning about writing, and people were talking about writing villains, my professor was, and he was teaching us of that villains who yell and shout and who are outwardly evil aren't dangerous, but villains who are soft-spoken and sweet and they kill you with sweetness and with nectar. Those people are dangerous. And I always thought that was really interesting. And I feel like that's what Mel is in a way of she knows exactly what she needs to do to get what she wants out of particular people. And that makes her a formidable force on the council and just in the city in general.
Yeah, that she's clearly clamoring for power and knows how to manipulate people to get there. She does a good job. And I also think that it's not grooming, but she definitely manipulated Jace for the past several years. To get him where he is. And then even at the end, getting him his council seat too. And you can see it in the expression of Heimerdinger too, knowing he was outplayed by her. Because if he doesn't, he could lose Jace. Jace is far more dangerous under only Mel's supervision on his own, doing his own stuff than where everyone can watch him. And you can see Heimerdinger realizing he got played by her.
Yeah. I will say that Jace, so actually I'm having 3 thoughts as I'm saying this, but
I love it.
I will say in that moment when Mel is Jace should become a councilman, and he's making that face, that surprise, Chad face of
surprise
what?
Pikachu?
I don't want to be a councilman. And it's well, why aren't you saying anything? And I was so annoyed in that moment, but then afterward I was thinking about it and I was that's so perfect for the type of person that he is though. And it tells us a lot about him. It's he could object, but he doesn't because he secretly wants that. And he's putting on airs of oh, what? How? I don't want that, but he secretly does. And I thought that was such a clever way for them to do that. I've been watching it. I was so frustrated because I'm oh, Jace, you suck. Why don't you just say no? You just did all this grandstanding about getting rid of your company. But he probably only said that because he knew that they wouldn't do it because it's too valuable.
I don't know. Sometimes I think that Jace is just he's a very smart scientist for a very dumb politician, which is going to make him he doesn't know he's being manipulated by all these people. He does not know how to play the politics game. I feel it was sort of a genuine reaction of oh, no, that wasn't what I was trying to ask for at all. But then when he let it sit for a second, why wouldn't he? He's from a poor house, right? They made hammers.
That's a good point.
He wants more influence because he is the man of the city, right? He's on coffee cups, on blimps. But he doesn't have actual power, right? They use him. He was complaining about it with Victor, too, being we've done everything they asked. It's time for us to do our own projects. And so he saw the opportunity of but now my voice, which I think is important because I'm Jason, a dumb idiot, I think what I have to say is really cool and neat. I could speak up and I could have a say in this city that I have done so much for. And so that's why he's not going to object, that even though it's not something he thought he could have, it makes perfect sense to him, the dumb idiot that he is.
Yeah. And he strides into Caitlyn's room just knowing that oh yeah, she's going to accept this position on my council. And I love that she kicks him out. I've always felt their friendship is kind of weird because I was they just, I don't know. I didn't really feel they had any connection, so it just felt weird, but I was glad that she kicked him out.
Well, I don't think we see it enough, but to me it sort of feels her family's these rich people, and they found a smart, poor child, and they took him in. So, they probably grew up together in, a sibling sort of way of, her parents probably paraded him around being look at this smart boy we had sort of adopted. Right? We're his patrons. We sent him to fancy school. Look, he's smart, and his successes are good for us. So, Caitlyn probably just, grew up with him. To me, it feels way more like a sibling relationship than it does they naturally became friends, right? They were just around each other enough and could talk about their problems together, right?
Yeah, I definitely see that now.
But yeah, he walks in there being hey, bad news. You got fired, but good news, you could come have a desk job. And Caitlin, who, by the way, is ripped as hell. Absolutely. She stood up.
Shredded.
Absolutely shredded. I said, look at those guns. She was like, no, obviously not. I love that he's like, oh, you're working on the great conspiracy. Like, she's got her yarn spread out in front of her. Incredible. Yeah. I love her.
She is amazing. I also, love that she is actually putting the pieces together. There's a little part of me, just a little itty bitty bit, that's like, I feel like she, especially after getting fired for a terrorist attack, I feel like there's a little part of me that's like, why doesn't she suspect that Marcus is involved or that there's some kind of corruption in the Force? There's a little part of me that's like, that's kind of weird that she doesn't suspect that something's going on there.
I mean, I guess she might, right? She has the pieces to start to suspect it because she saw that the shipping manifest had been approved. But the way Jace explained it to her was that after she was injured doing her job, her parents requested to Marcus
that right. He did say that. Yeah.
Right. So, it's not weird. I mean, to me at least, it doesn't feel like it's overly suspicious that her boss doesn't listen to her when everyone sees her as a spoiled rich girl. Her boss is like, stop doing things you're not supposed to be doing. I don't like Marcus, but he's like, stop doing things you're not supposed to be doing. You have a job to do. Do that job. I didn't pay you to come in here and get up in my plans. And then, it's not that Marcus fired her for, snooping around. It's that her parents said, fire her. We're on the council. We have a lot of sway in this city, and we don't want our child to get blown up in a domestic terrorist attack.
Yeah. That's also, she was right there and got the explosion to the face, and I was like, she's durable.
Yeah. She had stayed outside to use a fire extinguisher.
So I have a hot take real quick. You ready for this?
Wow.
Hot take alert. Sound the alarms. I don't like Heimerdinger.
Okay, explain. Tell me your thoughts.
So I feel like, let's just pack two hot takes into one as we're just put the foot all the way in the mouth as we're doing it.
Carmen hates science. Go.
I feel like Heimerdinger is like the Yoda character, which I also don't like Yoda, which is a different thing for a different podcast.
Wow, pause this podcast. Let's get into the other ones.
But I just feel like Heimerdinger is supposed to be this wise character or whatever. And I just don't like him because I feel like he is so blinded by his own hubris of this kid, okay, so he tells Jace, I can't remember if he was supposed to go to jail or not, but they were like, your research is done or whatever. So he does it anyway. And now this kid's the most popular, richest person in the city, right? And so the kid's like, hey, I want to show this thing off. And he's like, no, don't do that. It'll take another 10 years. It's like, did you not learn your lesson of what happened the first time? And I always feel like with those characters like Yoda, like Heimerdinger, they're supposed to be the wise character. Nobody ever calls them on their BS. I'm like, no, dude, you're wrong. You're wrong, bro.
But he's right. But he was right.
But he's not right.
He's right because he says, listen, we can argue whether or not Hextech was a good thing. I think we could argue about that. But Heimerdinger knows how dangerous magic can be, right? Hextech only was allowed because Mel saw it, everyone saw it. There were people who witnessed, this is a technology we could use and have. And, Heimerdinger couldn't shut it down, right? He lost that fight. But, he is proud of Jace and going to Jace and being like, hey, listen, this is a really cool thing. He was like, I was maybe wrong about Hextech. You have figured out a cool way. But this is dangerous. Having a crystal of magic that can power weapons, because Jace built weapons, even though he's like, look, it's for mining. I was like, that's a weapon. Continue on. Yeah.
Right.
And Heimerdinger is like, yeah, big gauntlet, big laser. This is not a weapon, obviously. Okay. If you put that in the backdrop of an evil villain's lair, everyone would say, yeah, an evil villain inventions, of course, whatever. So Heimerdinger's like, cool. What you've done is really fun and interesting, and I'm proud of you, but these are not ready for the public. You have built weapons. We need some more research to make sure they're safe. And Jace is like, what is safety, after all? But then Jace agrees that he's right, because in his speech, he doesn't reveal it, which is when Mel does some more manipulation.
By getting up and walking out.
Oh, she was upset, yeah. Because she realized that Heimerdinger still had some influence over Jace. But Jace also agrees that it was not the right time. That maybe we should figure out a way that this new technology can't be misused. It's like somebody inventing, look how cool radium is, right? They're like, oh, look, we found this new element. Let's give it to everyone. And And then everyone's got radiation poisoning. Right? Like, that's exactly what Jace is doing. Is like, hey, we found a cool new thing. Everyone should have it. And then everyone gets radiation poisoning. Right? Like,
when you put it like that, I guess that does make a lot of sense.
I agree that, like, the wise character is not, like, a trope that I necessarily agree with. And I do think that Heimerdinger handles things poorly because he is centuries old. And, like, to him, time is nothing. To someone who lives 80 years, a human who lives 80 years, 10 years is a long time.
So, like, to Victor over there on his cane, he's like, what?
Victor's like, I don't have 10 years. I'm withering away before your very eyes.
So we're almost out of time. I think that we need to update our Bad Decision Olympics. And we did start a little bit of a thirst tracker last time.
Yeah, I know, it's your favorite part.
I do love the thirst tracker. But first, the Bad Decision Olympics.
Sure.
So let's start from the bottom and work our way up. Do you think Silco is still in honorary mentions, or do you think he's in the running?
I mean, he's just making villain decisions. I don't know, like, his decisions are all bad because he's a villain.
That's true. So, okay, so I will say Powder Jinx confided in him, and he made the decision to essentially, what's it called when you
groom a child?
You don't get fired. Yes, but essentially he put Jinx on the bench, and because he sidelined her, she went off and did the thing she did. But that's not to say that she's not responsible for her own decisions. But he made the bad decision of, like, not listening to her,
or getting
and also
her a
not listening to, or just grooming. Okay, so maybe
for sure, maybe he is gold medal. No, Marcus is still absolutely no. I don't know. Give me your thoughts. Where are you thinking people are?
Okay, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Jace, bronze tier. This episode.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, he's dumb, but he didn't really do anything. So he didn't really do anything bad this round.
Yeah, I mean, he invented a technology and then lost it. So, like,
I mean, it's not his fault it got stolen. If anything, it's Caitlin's fault it got stolen.
How is it Caitlin's
fault? No, I don't know. I was just trying to trick you.
In what way was it Caitlin's fault? Caitlin was in the hospital.
Uh-oh, I'm done for. I was just messing with you.
I don't think Caitlin made a bad decision this time.
I don't think Caitlin's capable of making a bad decision.
Keep watching. Let's find out.
Okay, this is what I think. I think bronze tier, we got Jason Victor.
Sure.
I think Mel is either silver or gold.
Okay.
What do you think, silver or gold?
So, I mean, silver. I don't know, maybe she is playing her own game. I don't know that we're watching her I don't know that we've seen the consequences for her decisions yet.
Is she an honorary mention? Is she down there with Silco?
Yeah, maybe, like, she's plotting things, so we know that there are some decisions being made, but it's yet to be seen if they're bad.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so then Marcus is still gold tier.
I don't know. I still think him siding with Silco set off a lot of things that didn't need to set off. But I think that maybe Jinx is silver medal.
Yeah, for stealing. Well, maybe she's gold medal because when she stole the, whatever the orb things are called.
Hex-Tex Gemstone?
Hex-Tex Gemstone, yes. But she stole that. It kind of put Silco's whole operation on the map.
Yeah, she really did. I mean, we've yet to see the consequences for that. But she did arm a known terrorist with more powerful weaponry or more powerful technology. So I agree. Maybe Jinx is gold medal decision, which I don't think she gets a pass for her actions due to her past trauma because she's an adult now, as far as it seems. It appears that maybe she's an adult. Maybe she's a teenager. But
hopefully she's an adult, yeah. Oh, geez.
I don't think I'm putting Vi on this list because we have not seen Vi as an adult. And I don't think that her getting mad that her sister did a bad thing is a bad decision Olympics thing.
I will say she did break What's-His-Face's jaw, and because she did, she ended up in solitary confinement.
But I would argue that's a good decision because instead of going to talk to that man, Caitlin went to go talk to her. And I think that that is a good decision.
Okay. Well, then that's good enough for me.
I think that it ended up being a good decision. I think beating up a man who helped kill her father and her adopted brothers is not a bad decision. And it led to a good thing because now Caitlin's path has crossed with Vi's.
You know what? She did just beat him up. She didn't kill him. So, yeah, he got off lucky. So, yeah. All right. So, let's just recap so people at home know. Bad Decision Olympics for episode 3 and 4. The honorary mentions are Silco and Mel. Clap it up, clap it up, clap it up.
For plotting and being evil, yeah.
Just plotting them being evil. Bronze medal tier, we have Jason Victor.
For bad science.
Bad science, the bad science duo. And then silver medal, we have Marcus.
For taking bribes and setting off a lot of things in motion.
Everyone's favorite dirty cop.
God, and then Marcus.
Our winner for episode 3 and 4, gold medal tier, is Jinx for giving a nuclear weapon to a terrorist.
Yep. And murdering a bunch of Caitlin's friends.
Oh, yeah, she did murder
Let me be honest, are cops, but we don't know that cops in this world have the same sort of problems that cops in our world do. That has not been proven yet.
We do know Marcus is bad, so...
We know Marcus is at least dirty, but we don't have any information about the enforcers that lost their lives in the domestic terrorist attack that she caused.
We also, just from how she was fighting on the airship, it seemed like she's killed lots of people before.
Yeah, so. She is very comfortable with shooting people.
She's a murderer, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's our Bad Decision Olympics. Now, our thirst tracker from episode 1 was pretty light. We just had Caitlin on here. I don't know.
I don't know what you were just hot for Caitlin in episode 1. You wrote this down.
No, I think what I was going to do is I was going to do Caitlin and Vi.
They have only met now. Yeah. Just now, at the end of this episode.
Which is why I didn't finish typing it back then. And so now I'm adding Caitlin and Vi to the thirst tracker.
They have not had... I feel like you're giving some stuff away here, Carmen. You're showing your hand a bit.
Look, if you have the internet...
All right. Look. Sorry, 2 hot women met in this episode very briefly at the last second.
Okay. All right. Okay,
no, they're on there now, but they're on there. And then we also had Jason Victor. And I do also think that Jason Mel had shared some eyebrows.
I'm not a fan of Jason Mel.
No, because she's using him.
Yeah.
And as far as we've seen, to her, she is using his naivete against him for her own use. Yeah.
That's correct. I also feel like Victor is being ignored by Jace, and we'll see if that has consequences.
Yeah. He did try to invite him up on stage with him. And Victor said, no, I don't want people to see me because I am slowly dying, I guess. I don't know. I have tuberculosis. He's coughing into his hand, which is... Listen, if you've ever seen a television show, coughing into your hand, a bad sign. You know at some point he's going to do the slow reveal where he looks into his hand and there's blood and it's tuberculosis. You know that's what's going to happen. If you've ever seen any television show, you know it's not good when a sickly skeleton man starts coughing.
It's not good.
This sick Victorian boy.
It's wild that it's like we have this magic where we can essentially travel at light speed across the globe, but we don't have a doctor who can help this man.
Yeah, we haven't figured out vaccines yet.
Yeah.
Well, okay, off topic, and I know we have to end this episode, but to me, the Hextech transport just looks like a slingshot. Like, they just it's not even teleportation, they just slingshot airships.
Just throw it across the sky,
yeah. Heaven forbid there's a bird in the way, is all I have to say.
That bird's done for.
The bird is missed.
Oh, man. Well, any last thoughts on episode 3 and 4 before we wrap up?
No, listen, I want you at home to tell us your thoughts on who won this week's Bad Decision Olympics. I'm very eager to hear, and we'll keep tracking it, and you come back next week, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, we forgot to do this last time, but just real quick. Do you still love it, Aaron? Do you love Arcane?
Oh, we did forget. I do. I still love it. If it's not clear with the smiles in my voice and the way that I keep talking about how great the characters are, the writing is, and the art. Absolutely gorgeous. I still love it. But Carmen.
Yes, Aaron?
Do you still love it?
Oh, absolutely. You actually brought up something that I forgot to mention earlier. The animation is just so amazing. So good. And the art style and the writing, everything's so good. Love this show. So happy we're watching it again. Well, let us know if you love Arcane. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Tell us what you thought on our socials. And thank you all so much for listening. And welcome to the club. And remember, it's dangerous to watch TV alone.